Welcome to GracePoint. GracePoint is a global community of inspired, visionary thought leaders and students who know that the first step in healing the world is to fulfill their own personal potential, align with their unique life purpose, and unify in their vision for an abundant world for everyone. And now, here is the GracePoint podcast.
Hello and welcome. I am Michelle Vandepass at GracePoint Publishing, and I'm so honored to have Karen Burks with me today. She is the author of Eat Freely, God's Perspective About Food. I'm so excited to dive into this material with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to jump right in. The book is not a diet book.
It's
a book about your relationship with food, which makes most people, myself included, think, well, I've got to control what I eat, stop what I eat, go on a diet. Tell me why it's not a diet book. Let's just dive in there.
Several years ago, I received my master's in nutrition. I've studied about nutrition for 20 years. And so I have had that same perspective, trying to figure out the right foods to eat, the right way to eat, how much to eat, when to eat, what to diet. And the more I learned, the more confusing it became. And yet I grew up in church and I knew that God created food, but I never knew what his perspective was. It was never discussed. And so while I'm studying from the scientific nutritional perspective, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, God, if he created it, he must have a perspective about it. And so I honestly started my research thinking that I was going to find a diet plan. I was going to find certain foods that were, I was going to find a passage somewhere in the Bible that said, you should eat kale. And the perspective was so different. And in the garden, he actually says, eat freely. And so the more I thought about it, and the more I researched, the more I studied, I realized that there is a huge disconnect between what God said, the food creator said, and what we're doing today. And the more we're learning, it's not making it any easier, and people aren't getting any healthier.
We are not getting healthier. And I love this perspective that you talk about, that it's God's perspective and to eat freely. But, so my teenage daughter, left to her own devices, might eat freely with what I might not think is the healthiest food on the planet.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, even though I might be able to eat, I don't know, I can't think of anything, avocados, I probably shouldn't eat 20 a day, right?
Right.
So talk to me about the eat freely thing, and what does that mean? Or can we really eat freely?
I think the term freely is the catchword.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, everybody's perspective about food is diet restriction, limits. And here we have God's perspective of eat freely. And it sounds like, hey, go out and eat whatever you want, however much you want, go for it. And it's not really what he's talking about. When he was in the garden, he prepared the garden for Adam and Eve. And he created the food. And he said, you can eat freely of all this food that I have created, because he designed the body to use the food he created. Now, in your daughter talking about the food choices that she has, it may not be real food. You have got two different types of categories of food. One is the food industry. And I hate to say it, there's a lot of food on those grocery store shelves that you really can't classify as food.
Right.
What God is talking about is what I have created. You can eat freely.
I love that.
And the beauty of it is that each person has their own journey. I do not believe that there is one diet for everybody. Like you were talking about avocados. My husband is allergic to avocados. My husband he can't eat coconut. So he can't have coconut oil. He can't have avocado. So does that mean that he's just left he either has to eat the food that he's going to have an allergic reaction to, or is he just going to be unhealthy? That just doesn't work for him.
Right.
So the freely part is within the construct of what God has created and how God leads you in that relationship to eat.
Yeah. So that right away makes it simpler, right? If it grows and it's food, you can eat freely of that.
Yes.
Now, talk to me about when we start adding things like animals, fish, shrimp. Talk to me
Yeah.
about all of those things.
Initially in the garden, everything was fruits and vegetables, plants, herbs, things like that. After the flood, when he was talking to Noah, he said, I've also given you animals.
Yeah.
That's it. It is. He makes it very, very simple. And how you navigate within that construct is between you and the Lord. And you don't have to explain it to anybody, but it's a personal, it's sort of like a knowing, like an intuitive, I don't do well with this certain food. And I believe that that's just the Lord said, that's not what I want you to eat. That's not how I designed you to work.
Right. Now, there's been all kinds of diet books written, but including things like Eat for Your Blood Type,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you think like, I don't even remember, it's been 20 years since I read that book or whatever, and I don't even remember what it is now. But when I read through it, I was like, oh, yeah, I sort of intuitively do this anyway.
Right.
And
Right.
so do you think there is a connection between being intuitively drawn to what the right diet is for us? Is that what I hear you saying?
Oh, I absolutely do. Years and years ago, we've all immigrated from different areas of the country, of the world,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And so along that, we each have a different genetic makeup. And so there are certain people who just do a whole lot better on vegetables. There are certain people who do a whole lot better. They feel better on meat. There are certain people who cannot have dairy at all, but yet there's some people who have to have dairy or they don't feel well.
Mhm.
It's fat, protein, carbs. It's so many variables that when you try to pigeonhole an entire population into one way of eating, you're going to have people getting sick on both sides. And I honestly believe that when you're reading these books and you're drawn to reading, for example, the blood type.
Yeah.
You can read about keto. You can read about intermittent fasting. You can read about paleo. If there's something in there that resonates with you and you are already seeking God's plan for your way of eating, it's going to come alive. It's going to be something that you resonate with, where somebody else might read that and go, that doesn't interest me at all.
So it sounds really simple and it sounds really freeing to eat freely. And it sounds like, okay, I'm on board, but then, my intuition is telling me to eat the whole box of chocolate because I don't feel good today, and
Right.
my emotions and my hormones, and so that's what I want. So how do we self-regulate? And maybe regulate's not the right word.
No, I understand what you're asking. And that's what makes food so complicated, because you have cultural influences, there's emotional, there's tradition, there are the family ways of eating, the things that give us comfort. It is so much more complicated than just fueling our body.
Family and culture is so huge.
It's huge. Right? But this is where that relationship with the food creator, I believe, comes into play. Because each person, everybody in some form or fashion struggles in some way with food. There is so much information and it's conflicting. It's not necessarily always for the consumer's best interest. Some people are making food and it's just about profit, or they're selling convenience. They're not selling nutrition. It is so confusing. And that's why the perspective in this book is about the relationship with the food creator, your specific relationship to the food creator, and he will guide you. Yes, have there probably been some habits that have been developed? Are we dealing with some sugar addictions? Who doesn't love sugar?
Right.
But I don't think it's an all or nothing thing. I think it's finding that getting in tune with that relationship, talking to God about how you're feeling and what you're struggling with, and let him guide you into how you need to eat.
So how do we start that process? Give me.
Read the book.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Eat freely. God's perspective on food, available everywhere books are sold. But give me an idea. So I'm feeling sad. This happens with women, especially all the time. Feeling sad, craving chocolate, craving a boost, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even, a latte and cookies all at the same time. So we get that boost, right? What do we do? Do we drop into meditation and prayer first before we go for that? Do we have to stop ourselves? Is it every morning we get up and pray for guidance? Like, how do we start this process?
Prayer is just having a constant conversation with God, whether you're standing in the grocery store aisle, looking at the produce, wherever you are, if you're looking at the menu there in a restaurant, and it's just bringing him into it, because it is a huge part of your day, at least for most people, 3 times a day. And he knows it. That's the thing. He knows it. And he just wants to be included. A lot of times cravings are coming from the fact that that particular body doesn't have the nutrients it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're eating whole foods and you're eating the things that he designed the body to start running on, those cravings might go away because the body is now fed.
Right.
When you're eating something processed off the shelf, there's no nutritional value there. And your brain knows it, and it's not getting the energy it needs to do the things that we're asking it to do during the day.
Yeah, I noticed for myself, I do struggle with sugar, and I love my chocolate. But I do notice that if I eat like a good breakfast and a good lunch, I don't get that craving at 3.
Exactly.
Right? Like
because
I eat more food. I eat more food. I get more calories in, but actually it helps my blood sugar throughout the day, right?
Yeah. We're coming in off the tail end of some really bad advice from decades ago of eat less, exercise more, low fat, no fat, and it has created nutritional deficiencies that people are trying to make up for. You're never going to outsmart your brain. When your brain recognizes that those nutrients are low, it is going to signal what it needs. And we interpret it as a cookie or a soft drink or something.
Quick snack.
Yeah, because that fuel tank is low. But if the body is fed, just like what you were saying, it's like you're not craving anything. You're satisfied.
Right. So how does emotional craving fit into this?
When we start to associate reward with food, or I'm feeling bad, so now I deserve this.
Well, that's a cultural thing, though. Let's go out to dinner and celebrate. Let's open the champagne and celebrate.
It is.
Right? Let's have dessert and celebrate.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything, every event, every ceremony, celebration, family function, it revolves. The first question is, okay, who's bringing what? What are we eating?
who's supplying the food? Right.
Right. And and sometimes it's important to be able to go, you know what? I just want to celebrate this moment and be thankful for my family and thankful for this time, and just be present and not stressing out over, well, I'm watching everybody else eat and I'm chomping down on a carrot stick. That's not fun.
Right.
But it's those conversations that I'm trying to foster. It's like, talk to your food creator about it and let him start to guide you into how to handle those situations. You're never going to outsmart your brain.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. And you make it so simple. Like, if it's growing and it's food, it's okay.
Eat
right?
It. Yeah.
And that's one of the things in all that information out there that we're sort of taught is go around the perimeter of the grocery store, not down the aisles, right?
Yeah.
But even if you do the perimeter, there's a lot of junk there now, right? I mean, even in the dairy aisle,
Oh, yes, very much so. Things are pasteurized, things are ultra pasteurized. There's a lot of
Sugar added, flavors
yeah,
added, right?
things are fortified. Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
And that's why it's the issue isn't so much about what you're eating. It's get to know or get in a deeper relationship with your food creator. And the book outlines the different gifts that he's given you that make that relationship possible.
Right.
And
Right.
once you know what you're armed with, it changes your perspective.
And there's all throughout here, there are quotes from the Bible throughout
Yeah.
here to help you get in touch. And just to be clear, you don't have to be overly religious for this book.
Not at all.
Right? So you don't have to be like in the middle of a big church or
No.
anything. This is about really getting in touch with
your relationship to the food creator.
Yeah. And so there are great biblical references in here. It's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the book. But and lots from Corinthians in here, especially. But it's not to say, oh, you have to be like a certain religion or certain,
No.
So I just wanted to make that really clear too.
Oh, absolutely. And if you think about it, he designed your body to need food.
Yeah.
So this is for a lot of people, it consumes their thoughts all day long. Did I eat enough? Have I not? Have I eaten too much? They feel guilty. And it just becomes this emotional burden that people don't need to carry. Yeah. And my hope is that when people read the book, they're going to find a personalized message in that book. And at some point, as they're reading, they're going to exhale and go, oh, it doesn't have to be as hard as everyone else has made it.
So I love that you say that, because I also happen to know that one of your passions is breathing.
Yes.
And so
absolutely,
actually exhaling, but also maybe just taking a breath is a way to stop in the moment. Mm-hmm. And just ask, okay, what's the right food for me, or what's
yes. Right? Yeah, just being available, making yourself sensitive to his leading. And the Bible tells you that he wants to talk to you, that we will recognize his voice. And people think, well, food is just so minor. He's too busy to deal with that part. If it matters to you, it matters to him. Talk to him about it. Take him up on it. Challenge him. It's like, all right, I need help. I need you to do this because I can't do it on my own. And that's all he wants. And that's his perspective.
And we will get answers.
You will get
guidance.
Answers.
Yeah, yeah.
Will.
I'm in love with this book, and I've started buying more apples and less ice cream. Yeah. Apple, it's amazing. Apples actually are very filling.
They are.
And they're sweet, and they taste good, and they're crunchy, and right?
So, yeah, they satisfied that whole mouthfeel that the food industry has manufactured to try to addict you to keep eating. Yeah. All of that is already built into the whole food that God created for your body to use. And your brain recognizes that as food. Your brain doesn't know what in the world, if it's got a food label and it can sit on a shelf for years, your body doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. Words of wisdom. So tell me what you're working on. You teach breath work. I've seen some of the things happening behind the scenes in your house with cooking and growing and so forth. Yeah. Tell me what you're sharing right now. What's next, so people who, after they read the book, they want to work with you, like how can they get to other things that you're doing, and what is it that you're working on next?
The majority of what I'm working on now is putting together, I'm interested in starting to teach classes online to people who are interested in taking their health and fitness to the next level. Yeah. And the interesting part of it is I'm a personal trainer. I'm a certified spinning instructor. I'm a digestive health specialist. Everything, it's like, try to do more. You got to exercise. You got to eat right. I get it. But your ability to breathe well will transform all of those activities. There's, certain ways to breathe in exercise. There's certain ways to breathe through yoga. But your body is giving a lot of information through breathing. Your body uses this to ramp up your lymphatic system. And people have lost 30 pounds just by getting their lymphatic system working. So I'm interested in teaching people about a habit. It's not, especially now at this time of year, everybody's got resolutions. They're trying to incorporate new habits and new behaviors. Well, everybody already has the habit of breathing. You don't have to try to incorporate that into your day, because if you're not trying to do it on your own, your brain takes over and you'll breathe.
Right.
But it's such a primary kind of the foundation of health and fitness. But because of stress, people don't breathe well. And it creates a lot of consequences that people aren't even aware of. And it's a simple fix, but it has huge, huge results.
Yeah, I love that. And there, in general information out there, they're always saying slow down when you eat, right? And somehow I think that's connected. Like, don't just inhale the food.
Right.
Right.
Right. Stress is the key. I've been studying about stress for 20 years, and stress is the key because it shifts your body's way of functioning. And most people, and I challenge you, when anybody who's listening to this right now, at some point during the day, especially probably while you're driving or something, you're going to find that you're holding your breath because you're under stress or you're focused on something, but that sends a signal to your body that you're in a fight or flight, or it's got to switch or something. And so it's teaching people how to use a habit that they already have established. They don't even have to think about it, but to make it healthy, to make it work for them. And from the personal training perspective, the most underused or the undertrained muscle is the diaphragm, which is the muscle for breathing. Everybody focuses on biceps and triceps.
Right.
But if you focused on your breathing, it will totally transform your workouts.
Wow. So maybe that's your next book.
Yeah.
I know you've got several. In there. I love this conversation. So just so people know, they can go to gracepointpublishing.com and find you, Karen Brooks, under the author section with links to your website, links to buy the book. The book's available on Amazon. Coming out with an audio book soon, we hope.
Yeah. Excited about that.
Yeah. What's the one question I forgot to ask you, Karen?
I'm not sure. I feel like we've covered quite a bit. Or maybe like, what do I hope that people will get from this book?
Yeah.
And I said it earlier. I hope that they exhale. I hope that they feel like there's an answer. And it's not complicated. It's just about aligning your perspective with God's original perspective and let him do the work.
Love that. Well, it was a journey getting it out, and now, but
COVID.
but it's out. I'm enjoying it, and other people will too. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Grace Point. We invite you to join our global community of inspired visionary thought leaders and students who know that the first step in healing the world is to fulfill their own personal potential, align with their unique life purpose, and unify in their vision for an abundant world for everyone. And remember to subscribe on iTunes to the show so that you can get further episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time on the next episode of Grace Point.